her home down in Texas, USA. Miss Sheets, how are you this evening?
I am doing well, thank you. I was actually jamming out. That was some really good music you were playing.
I did that for you. I did that for you.
I was thinking about what you said about the categories. I guess I should go on there and vote. So you said you don't know what other refers to, but so Gab would be other.
Oh yeah. Right. Right. Although I'm not on Gab anymore. I don't do the social media thing at all anymore.
I really hate social media. I don't have a personal social media page.
Good for you.
Any social media I have is with a purpose.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I don't like it at all.
You're still doing a YouTube thing though, occasionally. Even there though, you've kind of quieted down a little bit because you used to put out videos more consistently than you have in the last couple of months. But you've put a few new ones up recently.
Well, what happened was, I've never been one of those people that I just need to make videos every day because I want to gain a ton of subscribers. I need people to pay attention to me for just, ridiculous reasons. I speak when I have something important to say. And I've always been like that. My channel's not monetized. It never has been. I promised the people of South Africa a long time ago that I would never monetize my channel because it wasn't about money. But the election, everything that happened to us here in our country really took a huge toll on me with the pressure that I had with everything I do in South Africa as well. And, a physical toll, like I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I was just, and there's nothing we can do about it, right, at this point. I'm only one person. I will fight, but just me on my own, I'm just making myself sick. So I took a step back. I didn't make any videos for a while. And so now I feel a little bit better. And I just know I'm important to this fight in America and in South Africa. And, I have to come back. Not enough women speak as it is the truth, and I have to.
Yeah. Well, I think given the evidence that, and I was thinking about this, Brandi. I was going to say, given the evidence that's presented to us about South Africa and what goes on down there, those are the things that are reported on, and they're horrifying. But the thing I wonder about is how much stuff do we not know that the media is failing to tell us about what's going on in South Africa. You've done a great job of documenting and detailing all of this, and you've been on various talk shows across the internet, the platform. And made your own YouTube videos, as I say, and you got a lot of fans down in South Africa. But life right now, as bad as things have metastasized down there over the years, I think that as we sit here tonight, life in post-white South Africa has never been worse and never been more dangerous if you are not black, if you're a white person in South Africa. Would you agree?
You know what? It's a complicated situation, but I saw probably the only person that's had the balls to even speak out on what's happening there is Tucker Carlson, even though I don't even watch the news anymore, not even Fox News. But he had a guy on the other night, and they were speaking about what's happening in South Africa because now it has morphed into total chaos and total anarchy above and beyond what the white minority were already suffering. And it hit me, because I've been saying this a long time, like, guys, you need to pay attention to what's happening in South Africa. The reason it's important is because they were the canary in the coal mine. Let me just remind you that South Africa is one of, if not the most important places in the world, being that it is so rich in natural resources. We're talking coal, precious metals, diamonds, gold, everything you can think of. They have it. The world is not going to sit back and let it be destroyed for nothing. There's a bigger plan in place here. You know, Cyril Ramaphosa, every time he came back and announced another lockdown for these people, or you know, another stupid racist policy keeping whites from gaining employment, it always coincides with the G7 summit, right? So 2 weeks later, I mean, he'll be seen there, he'll be photographed there. He comes back, boom, it's another lockdown. I mean, this is coordinated, and I mean, there's a bigger plan in play. I don't know exactly what that plan is, but the powers that be, they want what is in that land for greed and everything else, and they're willing to do whatever they have to do to get it. It's really sad, but a situation there right now. Oh, the guy on the news the other night with Tucker Carlson said exactly what I've been saying all along. The reason you guys need to pay attention is because this is exactly what just happened here. These riots in the autonomous zone, burning police stations and destroying businesses,
right.
attacking people in the street.
Right.
It just happened here.
Sure.
Just on a much smaller scale.
Right.
But after 30 years, that is what we have to look forward to. More than 200 shopping malls looted, burnt to the ground, completely destroyed. People's homes, businesses. I mean, the irony in this is they're doing the exact same thing that they did almost 30 years ago to force the National Party, which was the white government, to act against them with force so that the world would step in. They're doing the same thing because former President Jacob Zuma was just sentenced to 15 months in prison for perjury. So the ANC, that's the ruling party. There are the Zuma loyalists, and then there are the new, like, Ramaphosa supporters. Well, they're at war.
Right.
So them being at war is, and this is just the truth. Listen, I support my people. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I am Dutch. I am German. I am Scandinavian. You know, loving our people is perfectly natural. There's
Totally.
nothing wrong with it.
Totally.
I don't say that with any malice in my heart
Right.
for anyone. But I love my people, and I want to see them thrive just as everyone else thrives. And when they're being slaughtered, there are only 40,000 farmers left. Forget about the 4.5 million whites. Let's just say white farmers. There were 80,000 in 1994. There are 40,000 left today. They provide 70% of food to all of Africa. They have a murder rate, let this sink in, of 318 of 100,000. The murder rate internationally is like 2 to 3 of 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
The murder rate in America is like 2 to 3 of 100,000. So 40,000 farmers have the highest murder rate, not only the highest, but astronomical. And we're not talking about murders, people. We're talking about biology experiments on children, on babies. I mean, I don't think most Americans can wrap their minds around the concept
they can't,
of
Brandi,
someone being raped to death.
Brandi, they can't because this stuff is rarely, you know, I'm thinking 100 different things listening to you, and one of the things I'm thinking about is exactly what you were just leading into. You know, people comprehending exactly what's going on down there. There's two reasons why that the people can't comprehend. Number one, it's so distant from where they are. It's so far outside their own galaxy. That's number one. Number two, the news media around the world fails to recognize and report accurately on what's going on down there, and the governments around the world turned a blind eye to this. Now, compared and contrasted to what happened in Rwanda, if you remember, and the UN got involved, and the world lost its collective shit, and a movie was made about it, and so on and so forth. And what goes on down in South Africa is it's almost like it doesn't exist. It doesn't really happen. Through the research that you've done throughout the years, when we talk about the way that country has deteriorated beyond recognition to the current the point it's at right now, In words, can you paint a picture of what South Africa was like before the current regime moved in, and versus what South Africa is like today? Because I believe they are two. It's like night and day, the sun and the moon. That's how different the country was. But in terms of what you've been able to ascertain through your research, what was South Africa like 35, 45, 50 years ago as compared with today?
There was corruption in South Africa. I'm an honest person. I seek the truth, not just the truth as I want to see it, right, from my narrative. So there was corruption, and there were problems, right? But right now, back then, the rand was almost double the American dollar. So we're talking like 1.79 to the American dollar. And today, the last time I checked, the rand was at 21 something to the American dollar. So we're talking about, they've already been downgraded to junk status officially. Okay. Imagine being whatever race, any race at all, and being an engineer and not being able to get a job as a street sweeper. Your vote doesn't count. You don't vote for the ruling party, but they don't have a electoral college, and so you're 4.5% of the population, and it's a little bit different dynamic because the black majority in South Africa, the majority of them, they don't believe in God. They practice what is known as sangoma, or what we would know as witchcraft or voodoo. They believe that doing horrifying things gives them special powers. So there's that tribal aspect. They're completely brainwashed. So back then, it was law and order. People could walk the streets. Their kids could walk the streets if they were white, whatever color, of all colors. And they were safe. They were scared of the law. They didn't want to be punished, just like regular law-abiding people.
Well, there's no other
today,
way to...
a white person, they can't let their children even go outside and play because they will be kidnapped, tortured, raped, slaughtered. They can't do anything. And they can't get jobs. The power grid is on a razor's edge of complete collapse. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So the money that was supposed to be allotted, it's called, their power system is Eskom, ran by Eskom. And the money that they've borrowed time and time again and been bailed out time and time again has been pocketed. So they have what is called load shedding. Well, those power stations were not meant to be turned on and off for load shedding. So what happens is they turn them off. When they turn them back on, they explode. So they're having load shedding, sometimes, 12, 18 hours a day. No power, no nothing. Back then, there was corruption, but you had one job. At least they kept the power on, And blacks actually had great educations, wonderful opportunities. What happened back then is what is known today as the People's War. And what that is the ANC was trained in, what is that general's name? I want to say
is he alive or dead?
Vietnamese or the Philippines or somewhere like that. I can't remember right now, off the top of my head.
Right.
Von Gap was his name.
Okay.
So they took what was their war from the bush into the townships. And they were taught to do that because what they did was they took the war into the townships and they gave the people, the law-abiding people in the townships, no choice but to join in their people's war, right? It was fight or die. So they took innocent people that wanted no part of it, and they forced them into a war where they would have to fight. And that's how that's how South Africa was stolen. Because I have news for people. There are no blacks
besides Khoisan people who are considered colored or mixed there, that are indigenous to South Africa. None. Okay, they all migrated there after the Dutch, German settlers settled there in 1652 with the East India Trading Company and began building infrastructure, jobs, a country. So the northern Africans started migrating there for jobs. Well, if you have a country, you have a right to know who's coming in and out of your country, right?
Well, you'd think.
You have borders.
Yeah.
If you don't have a country.
Right, right.
So what the National Party did, because the warring tribes could not stop slaughtering each other, much like today, they gave 10 homelands to 10 different tribes. Gave an enormous amount of land. They helped them with infrastructure, funding, mining, farming, everything. And it was doing quite well until the ANC came along
Well, now when you say,
with
Brandi,
the People's War.
Brandi, when you say they gave them, they assisted them.
What I'm saying is the Boer, the Afrikaner,
the white
National Party, the ruling government.
Right, but you're talking about the white Afrikaner. They.
Right.
All right. I just want to establish that point. Okay.
The ruling government party under the white minority was the National Party. Okay, and they had their own problems, but when I say they, the National Party, their solution to the warring tribes was to give them their own homelands. So when people talk about apartheid and how people couldn't move freely in South Africa was not the only place that people could not move freely. You could only move freely in your own homeland. And that's because the warring tribes slaughtered each other mercilessly. I mean, and that was the solution. So it's actually a lie that South Africa was the only place that because they were white, you couldn't move freely. You could only move freely in your own homeland. That's what having a country is about, right? But no one ever mentions the 10-state solution and all this land that was given to the tribes, and that the majority of the tribes wanted no part in the People's War. It was strictly the ANC, Nelson Mandela, even Cyril Ramaphosa, the man who's president today. And I just warn people that this is coming for us. It may be in a bit different way because they're greatly outnumbered, but it is coming. I mean, it's already here. It's already here. It's just on a much smaller scale. If we allow it to keep going, we're going to be those people. I think it'll be more
Brandi,
along the lines of conservatives and liberals.
I think we're already, in many ways, I think we are already, on a smaller scale, I'll agree, but I think in many ways, Brandi, we have already become those people. And this radical black power movement, which is being enabled and assisted by the good whites, so to speak, out there, they are steamrolling their way across this country and just taking everything that's within sight. And the longer that people continue to acquiesce to their not their suggestions and not their requests, but their demands, as long as this continues, then their power base is going to continue to grow. And you're so right. You're prescient in your point being that what we're seeing here now is a small microcosm in America of what has manifested into something much, much larger in South Africa. And getting back to my question about how South Africa used to be versus, today, I mean, the quality of life down in South Africa was tremendous. I mean, it just
for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
For everyone.
Exactly. And that's the point I think that people fail to realize is that everyone in South Africa, no matter what their color, religion, background, whatever, before this current party took control of the country and nosedived it into the ground, South Africa was a thriving, beautiful, safe country, and it was among, I think, the leading.
It was a first world country, and they had a superior first-class military. And when I tell you first class, these were the most sought-after fighting men in the entire world. Okay? These men, 88,000 Boer soldiers, broke the might of the British Empire during the Anglo-Boer War. 500,000 British soldiers could not defeat 88,000 Boer fighting men.
because of their guerrilla warfare tactics. Lord Robert Kirchner, his answer to this was the most cowardly thing that a man could ever do. He went and he had his soldiers burn down their homes, their farms, and take their women and children into concentration camps. 27,000 of them. The majority of them died in these concentration camps from eating ground up glass and being starved in the living conditions. The women did not want the men to surrender. They wanted them to keep fighting. They eventually did wave the white flag and make a treaty. They didn't want to. They were betrayed. But, I mean, this is not the first time. This is not the first thing they've been through, is my point. I mean, they have suffered greatly. And all for, and they're very religious, you know, so it's glory to God. You know, they don't take any credit for anything. But the truth is, they built this beautiful first world country from dust and shit. Had they not showed up at the Cape of Good Hope in 1652 and built South Africa, Africa would never have had a first world country, ever. Ever.
Well, it ain't first world.
That was it.
Anymore, I can tell you that. It's 24 after the hour. Brandi Sheets is with me here in hour number 2. You can follow her on her YouTube channel, which is at Conservative Texas Chick. I think it bears repeating just to reinforce in the minds of people exactly the genocidal movement, which has been years in the making and continues to the very second that we're on the air here tonight, Brandi, in terms of the malicious and vicious attacks on white people in South Africa, most notably those in the farming communities. It's been a couple months since you've been on with me, but am I wrong to suggest that this has shown no signs of slowing down? It continues to take place. And also, when we talk about these murders, these killings, these aren't just, shoot somebody in the head and walk away. I mean, this is some of the most savage, satanic-like killing and murdering that you're ever going to find anywhere.
Right. So I'll just make one statement on this, and it is Dr. Stanton, the founder of Genocide Watch. He's the only man who's ever had the guts to go over and report honestly and try to find out what was going on to these people. He gave a press conference at the Transvaal Agricultural Union. You can find it on my YouTube channel. It's like 13 minutes long. But he told the world, and he lives in Washington, D.C. I know him well. He is a good man. He's a godly man. But he lives in Washington, D.C. He's got plenty of friends in government. It was, of course, under the Obama administration. But if you listen to what he said, he told the world that their own government, I'll quote him, actually. What he said was that these are genocidal hate crimes, that the murders are so vicious and so horrible, he could only describe them as biology experiments, that's how horrifying they were, that these people were left with open Afrikaner Bibles on their bodies after being mutilated, children having boiling water poured down their throats after being raped, babies being wrapped in newspaper and set on fire because they weren't dead after they were gang raped. I mean, it's horrifying. But he said that Genocide Watch, in their investigation, found overwhelming circumstantial evidence that the ANC Youth League under Julius Malema was behind farm murders. If you think about the magnitude of what that man said, he told the world that their own government was planning and carrying out these crimes against humanity. And he called for an international investigation, which, of course, never came. I mean, well, that's pretty bad.
Speaking of that, the reluctance of the national the worldwide governmental systems to do something about all of this is the result of, in your mind, what is this display, everything black these days, the pro-black power movement, the white man is racist, the white man is evil, the white man is the devil. Is this the reason why countries around the world, including this one, are showing nothing but reluctance to get involved, to try to do something to protect the human rights of people down there that are being slaughtered?
That is part of it, but it's so complicated. There's so many aspects because of how rich in minerals South Africa is. There's China. They're raping South Africa for minerals because they have money, and the government is just all about money and greed. They don't care about the people, and they don't care about any of the people. But that's a big part of it because you take people that are already uneducated, and I hate to sound like cliche or disparaging, but they're raised in a very tribal aspect, and they have low IQs. You take these people from birth, and you tell them that they are starving because of the whites, that they are poor because of the whites, that they can't get jobs because of the whites, that every problem they've ever faced in their life is because of these tiny white minority, the 7% of the population, that, by the way, has more than 200 laws against them from gaining employment. There are more than 1 million white people in squatter camps in South Africa with no water, no electricity, nothing. But these people, the whites, pay 90% of the taxes. So it is just so complicated. It is in part that, but there's so much more to it.
If we went in,
stress so much that people,
Brandi, like if we went
pay
in,
attention. Pay attention, because if you guys, we still have power in numbers. I don't know for how much longer, but if we ignore it and we let it happen to them, I'm going to use an example, and it may make people laugh, but it's just like when Alex Jones was banned from all social media. I'm not a fan, okay? I'm sorry if you are. I'm not. But I remember thinking, man, we really need to stand up for him, because if we don't, we're next. Even though I didn't care for him, even though I don't watch his show,
right,
I knew that was the wrong thing to do, just to let them, just railroad him. And that's kind of like this situation. If we don't stand up and at least take notice and say, hey, what the hell is going on? We're next.
I want to give you a line on a recent story that was written. This column is currently on my website right now. I want you to respond to this. The author writes, the attacks, on farms are ominous. For years, there has been widespread violence against white farmers in South Africa. Journalists and liberals have denied it is happening in a systematic way. Indeed, anyone who mentions the killings is met with outrage. What are your thoughts when you read something like that?
It's absolutely true. I'm not even South African, and I have been under a complete cyber terror attack campaign for 4 years. They've hacked my bank account. They've cloned my phone number. These are people paid. I've uncovered everything. It's so shocking and such a big story that the carte blanche wouldn't even touch it. I'll tell you the guy's exact words when I handed over all of the evidence to him to prove who's behind all of this campaign of disinformation, lies, fake media accounts pretending to be white farmers saying, oh, I slept on a farm last night, everything's fine. They are trying so hard to hide this and cover this up. They planned it since 1992. There's a circular out that was leaked. The ANC has never denied that this was their document. And it lays out exactly what they plan to do to the white minority when they take over. They plan to boil them like frogs. So that they boil them so slowly that by the time the water heats up and they can't jump out, it's too late. There is an actual document. It's absolutely happening. And people that talk about it there, they end up dead. They end up murdered.
Well, you had led me to a gentleman from South Africa who months ago was on my show. He lives in South Africa. You correspond with him regularly, I think. Can you remind me of his name?
Dan Root.
That's him, Mr. Root. And I asked him...
Dr. Dan Root. He's a brilliant man.
Okay, Dr. Dan Root. And I asked him, I said, well, how is all of this stuff covered in the media in your country? I mean, are there columns that are critical of what's going on down there? Does anybody step out of line and say that this makes us look horrible and something's got to change and so on and so forth? And he said, no, you never see any of that. There is no criticism in any of the daily newspapers. There's no criticism on television, on radio. It's almost like it's disallowed because in actuality, it is disallowed.
Well, and Dan is absolutely right. He is a good friend of mine. I gain a wealth of knowledge from him. He is a brilliant man, an author. I mean, a very accomplished man. What they do to cover it up, and this applies to the world, why no one does anything. They take these murders and they classify them as ordinary crime. So, robberies and regular murders. The murder rate in South Africa is already 34.2 of 100,000. That's astronomical. I mean, that's the murder rate for everyone. Okay? And out of these murders, only 8% of them are ever prosecuted. Okay? This is how inadequate the police are. And they manipulate the numbers to the world by doing this. They say to the UN, well, it's technically less than 1% of all murders in South Africa. So it's a non-issue. Well, technically that's true. But what they fail to mention, that there are only 40,000 white farmers left, and they have a murder rate of 318 of 100,000. That changes everything, and that should set off red flags everywhere. But they don't tell this number. Literally, a farmer or his family is attacked at least once a day. A lot of days more. I mean, you can pretty well at this point say that there's probably one murdered a day.
Oh, at least. Yeah.
2 years ago, it was one every 4 days.
Yeah, so it continues to get worse. And you've mentioned before on this show the corruption that's in the various police departments down there. And just just about a week ago, the report came out. I got the story posted on my website. 5 police officers arrested in connection with the ghastly crucifixion murder of a white farmer by the name of Brendan Horner. And it says here 5 police officers have been arrested for cattle rustling in South Africa in connection with the brutal murder of a farm manager by the name of Brendan Horner last week. This young man was only 22 years old.
He was. I'm sorry, this will make me emotional. So Brendan Horner was only 22 years old, and he was a farm manager. They tied him to a pole, and this is the truth of it. Brendan had uncovered evidence of there are farmers and their cattle are being stolen. And I don't mean just a few cattle. I mean, this is like a very organized operation where, their entire herds of cattle are being stolen. Tanker trucks of fertilizer are being stolen. And I'm in America, so I'm going to tell you who's behind it. Where they have found a ton of this cattle is on Cyril Ramaphosa's ranch. Okay? That's a fact. Everybody in South Africa knows it, but they can't speak of it because if they do, they'll be dead. But Brendan Horner uncovered some evidence on where some of this cattle was going. I don't know exactly what evidence he had, but at first they only caught 3 police officers, and the day they announced his death, he was tied to a pole, and he was beaten, burned, tortured, stabbed, and he fought back to such a degree that his hands were pretty much unrecognizable. He fought back very hard.
My God.
So 2 escaped and they got 2 of them. Well, this was kind of one of the moments where the straw broke the camel's back. And when they took these men to their first court hearing, the farmers showed up at the courthouse and they stormed the courthouse. I mean, they were just gat ball is what they would say. And that pretty much means sick and tired, like fed up. Like, you're not going to murder our children anymore and get away with it. You're not going to murder our wives anymore and get away with it, and they fought back. Well, because they fought back, one of the men, they were shot at by one of the court officers, which they lied and said that the farmers shot off the shot, but there was video of it, and that wasn't true. While the EFF was outside trying to get jobs from the farmers. And, I mean, I was so proud of them that day. It was so sad that it took that, but they were scared that day. I mean, they scared the living hell out of them that day. And one guy, I think the treason charge has been dropped, or the terror charge, but this poor farmer, he was charged with terrorism, attempted murder, and all kind of stuff. He didn't even have a weapon on him. They shot at them.
Mm-hmm.
But, that story, Brendan Horner is one of many thousands. He's not the first.
No.
And he will not be the last. He was just the one that it was enough, that people just couldn't take it anymore.
Well, the thing that comes into many people's minds who do pay attention to what's going on down there, Brandi, is... how long are they going to put up with the attacks? What can they do about it? These are state-sponsored attacks in many instances. In other words, these are directives that are handed down. The police departments are corrupted, and so they take place and take part in a lot of these attacks and get away with it. Who knows if they may not be wearing uniforms, but they're members of the police force in many instances. But people think...
Sometimes they are wearing uniforms.
And sometimes they are wearing uniforms. But a lot of people will say, well, one of two things. They'll say, well, with this continued obvious mass genocide that continues, A, why don't the farmers leave, get out of there, sell their land and leave? Or B, build some sort of a military coalition to the best of their ability to fight back against this genocide that is being applied against them and has been for years. And I'm glad you noted that this young man, Brendan Horner, is only the latest, and there were probably and are probably more grotesque, vicious, malicious, satanic-like killings of innocent white people down there. That nobody ever hears about. But in speaking with people that you do, having personal connections down in South Africa, when you talk about is it not that easy just to pick up and leave, or what is the situation as far as the people that choose to remain there in spite of knowing that their very lives could end on any day at any second?
Well, the majority of people, when it was easy to leave, and they saw the signs written on the wall, they left, way back in the 1990s when they could still get into other countries. The problem today is, yes, there are those that will never leave, and I can only describe them. I have a great respect for these people because they're a lot like Texans. These are men and women that live in places like the old Transvaal, and their farms have been in their families for 300 years.
Yeah.
You're not just going to walk on their farm and tell them that you're taking their land. As they say, they'll die with their boots on rather than run away from their home. Their blood, sweat, and tears is in that land. And they shouldn't have to leave. But the ones that do wish to leave, they're prisoners there. They're prisoners in a country where they fund their own genocide because no one will take them in. Do you know that white South Africans, for the most part right now, that they won't even, the United States will not even grant them visitor visas to America because they're afraid that they will come and not leave. Well, if there's not a problem, why are you afraid that they will come and not leave? If it's safe, which is what the State Department says, Why are you
Hold
afraid
on a
to
second.
let them visit
Well,
America?
I want to clarify here. Wait a
I've
second.
personally seen a letter from the UK from a young man who he pled to the UK to let him in based on the fact that that's where his family came from. They wrote him back and told him no, that there was no problem in South Africa, that it was safe, that no farmers were being murdered. It was less than 1% of all murders in the country. It was not a problem, and no, he could not come in. They can't leave. I mean, we as Americans take for granted the fact that we don't really need visas to go anywhere. We just get a passport, we hop on a plane, anybody will take us. We can go anywhere we want. It's not so for them. They are citizens of South Africa. They're not immigrants. They were born there. They have birth certificates that say they are South African citizens. They can't just decide, I'm going to go to America. I'm going to get on a plane and go to the UK. The country has to allow them in. And even if they would allow them in, most don't even have the money to pay the fee to get a visa.
How much is the visa?
Because
How much is the visa?
the rand has been destroyed.
How much is the visa to get in? Let's just say they
It's
could.
like probably $150.
So let me get this right. Just
Add that up 21 times.
Okay, but clarify something for me. So the United States government takes the official position that for those who may be seeking asylum out of South Africa to come to this country, they won't do it. At the same time, hundreds of thousands of people every year are streaming across the southern border to come into this country illegally, and this country's bending over backwards to do whatever they can for these people?
Yep. And the sad part is the situation is desperate enough for these people to flood into America on life rafts, just like the Somalis do in Italy and everywhere else. It's that desperate. Let me tell you why they don't do that. They are law-abiding people. They do not want to break the law. They have a huge respect for America. They love the country. They love President Trump. They are conservative, all of them. I mean, for the most part, except for the ones that need to be thrown off a cliff. Excuse me. But there are those there, too. They don't want to break the law. The people that I know that have come here that are South African, they have come here and thrived. They have superior educations to us. I have one friend. He's a double engineer. He's a chemical and electrical engineer. Okay, and he's here because he's a specialized worker, but he came years ago. I mean, like at least 4 years ago, maybe, when you could still get in. But he's considered a highly specialized worker. So they come here and they thrive. I know people who have started trucking businesses. I mean, they are contributing to our economy. They don't come here, and I mean, it's shameful for them to take a handout. They would never come here and ask for welfare or anything like that. They're not those kind of people. They would want work. That's considered shameful to their family. This is why they don't flood in and try to come over the Mexican border and all of that, because it is that desperate. But they're trying to hold on to hope that someone will do something where they don't have to come illegally. They'll die before they come here illegally. I can tell you that.
Are there any members of the official party that runs South Africa that are not black? Are there any whites at all that have official government positions? Any?
There are a few. So what is it called? There is I say white party for lack of a better word, but I don't know if you guys have ever seen the video. It's called Rainbow Nation. You can find it on BitChute. It was made by a guy in Germany called Meringue Bad. He is brilliant, and he sums up everything that's happened the last 30 years in South Africa in 13 minutes in the most amazing video you've ever seen. And in that video, you hear a white man saying, "Are you ready for destruction, Boers? Are you ready for destruction. And he's in Parliament, and he's telling them, if you try to take these people's land, you better be ready for war, because that's what you're going to get. And that man, I can't remember his name right off the top of my head, but he is a very good man. He's the leader of the only, like, I say white, but it's just because that's who they
Well, that's what it is.
represent. I mean,
of course. Of course.
I mean, it's not because they say no one else can join.
Right.
It's just because,
well,
they're conservative.
And speaking of handouts, you did talk before, and when we consider South Africa and the food production and so on and so forth, I would imagine that these very same farmers that are under constant vigilant watch to ensure their own lives and the lives of their loved ones and families and so on and so forth, and those that work on the farms, that these farmers are essentially feeding the entire country. Am I wrong or right about that?
No, you're absolutely right. But you have to understand, this is the mindset there, the rationale. Okay, I actually heard someone in government say, oh, well, it's okay if we don't have farmers. We'll just get food from the supermarket.
Oh, yeah?
This is their state of mind. Where the hell do you think the supermarket gets the food from? They don't put two and two together. And quite frankly, they don't care. They want to tear down everything built by the white man. The only problem is they're not capable of building it back. Name one ship that has ever been built and sailed by indigenous Africans from that continent. Just one. There's
Brandi,
not any.
They
don't exist.
I take it. Whenever I talk about this kind of stuff, I take it even a step further. I say to my audience, name for me one single country in this world that is under black rule across the board, that has a thriving, high standard of living, safe place in which people really want to go visit, and where people feel, like they want to maybe go on a vacation, or it's a place that they put on their bucket list. And there is none. There is not one single black nation anywhere that is thriving. None. They are full of corruption. Their economies are poor. The poverty level is exceptional. It's just, listen, and when you point this out, of course, people think, well, you must be racist for saying, no, there's nothing racist about
pointing out facts.
There's right, exactly. There's nothing racist about pointing out facts. So, and South Africa.
No, I mean, nothing I say is to hurt anyone's feelings purposely, to just, hammer on one group of people or to disparage anyone purposely. I'm speaking the truth.
Yeah, but nobody cares about nobody cares about the truth.
You can't fix a problem if everyone covers it up, lies about it, and makes excuses about it. In order to fix a problem, you first have to acknowledge that there is a problem. And the common denominator in all of the violent crime, I mean, not all, I'm not saying white people don't commit crime or violent crime, but they don't do it as an epidemic everywhere they go. When everywhere you go, it is rape, murder, pillage. You are the common denominator.
Well, you can't argue against that. I mean, and there's, these are what we call on this show, Brandi. We call these inconvenient facts. And you talk about admitting and acknowledging that a problem exists, and you talk about you can throw in personal accountability, responsibility, all that kind of stuff. That's not going on down there. It's certainly not going on here in America. And really, we kind of double back to this and circle back to this when I say that what's going on in this country right now has remnants, features, and certain characteristics of exactly what has ensued down in South Africa for decades right now. And as you look at this situation right now, I mean, it's gotten to the point where it is so one-sided in South Africa that I wish I could say something different. Maybe you've got something to offer up which could change my mind, but I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel down there. I think this is going to continue to get worse, and until we have a country down in South Africa that has got maybe one or two white people left, and that's going to be the end of that country completely.
That actually breaks my heart to hear, because I have fought so hard. I mean, and it's not even about me. It's
it's about all of the people all over the world who have created a movement for. They have no idea what it means to these people who they thought the entire world forgot about them and abandoned them to die.
They did.
And yes, they did. They used to be very suspicious of me. When I put out one photo standing in solidarity with them on Black Monday, dressed in black, my daughter was holding a sign that says, "Please stop killing South African farmers. Love, Texas." This went viral. I didn't even have social media. This is the moment I realized why I had to join every social media platform, because I had to reach people, and this was the way. If that one act of kindness could go viral, what else could I do? You know? But they were very suspicious of me at first, like, why are you doing this for money? Like, why? No, because I care. This has been an issue for me for 13 years at the time. And I've been collecting evidence and data to help you for all those years. But yeah, they totally believed that no one gave a shit, that the entire world had abandoned them to die. And for any veterans out there listening, I would like you to know that the majority of these men, these farmers, minus the new generation, because they're not wanted in the military, they cannot serve in the military, they all were required to serve in the military. It wasn't a choice. They have fought in every single war we've ever had for us, whether it was as operators or in whatever capacity. They have fought on our side in every war that we've ever been in. And, you know, we like to say, no man left behind. You know, that's our military motto, right? Well, these same men that have fought in every single war that we've ever had for our freedom, the freedoms that they don't have, they have been left behind. And today, they're literally fighting for the lives of their wives and their children to not be slaughtered.
Somebody just sent an email in for you. I'm going to read it here in just a second. But before we get to that, I'd like to know if you know of any official organization that is in this country that stands for and represents the interests of these people in South Africa. Is there any organization that you're aware of, or are there just individuals such as you?
Actually, yeah, I own it.
That's it, as far as you know.
It's called Manumission. We kind of had a setback because of the election. We had some things in motion that are no longer in motion because of the election. People probably don't know this, but 27 years ago, Joe Biden told us exactly how he felt about the white minority in South Africa on video in Congress when he called for violence against them. So, I mean, I think his exact words were, the vile, repugnant Afrikaner regime. I think those were his exact words. So this is a man who, we already know how he feels about these people, but I do own a government nonprofit. It's called Manumission. Our website is under construction right now. Actually, my other two board members are John B. Wells and Brandi Wells. I work very closely with them. Brandi is John's wife. She's from South Africa. And she is one of my very best friends. They are two of the, greatest people that I could ever even imagine meeting. I mean, these are people that could just live a cushy life and never worry about another person. But what they actually do is put their money where their mouth is, and they fight for people. I mean, they are good people, and they helped me get this up off of the ground. And, we've been kind of at a standstill, but we still do a ton to help. I think 1 month I raised enough money during the lockdowns to feed, I think it was like 30 families for an entire month, because white families were being denied food parcels. They were being turned away. So we raised money and we started providing them ourselves. We help the farmers because of the droughts and the slaughter of their cattle and their entire livelihoods. We also help, such as times when, like during the Brendan Horner murder trial,
when the farmers were arrested. You know, I am like a dog with a bone. And I called every attorney that I know in South Africa and said, why are you not at the jail? Why doesn't this man have a bond? And why are you not fighting for him? If you claim to be for minority rights, he's a minority. He didn't do anything wrong. And it's pretty amazing. They go and they do something about it. I can never imagine that they would care. AfriForum, you know, they're ride the fence these days, but they were created, you know, to stand up for the white minority and look out for their interests. And they've done a ton of good, you know, keeping records on farm murders and stuff. But as of late, there's a lot of things they do that I don't like because they're fence riders. They actually threw Dan Root under the bus and said, oh, well, I mean, I think Ernst Rhodes said something like they called him a Nazi on TV. When somebody calls you something that ridiculous on national television, you stop right there and you turn around and you look at them and you say, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Just because you say it doesn't make it true. It makes you a jerk. And you're doing a great injustice to everything else by watering that down, by calling me that, you know?
Of course.
And he didn't do that. Instead, he tucked his head and tucked his tail between his legs and kept walking, and later on made a statement basically saying, well, I'm not a white nationalist like Dan Root. And he went to a story that Dan Root did an interview like 10 years ago with the BBC, and they totally edited, twisted his words to look like he said the exact opposite of what he said.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. They've done a lot of good, but you know, I called them up one day because this one guy's farm was being occupied, and I found the people occupying it laughing about it on Facebook. And I mean, that's a dangerous situation. Well, I called up AfriForum and I said, I want to know why you guys haven't gone to this farm, why you haven't checked on this family, and why you haven't tried to help get these invaders off of their land. Here are the photos where it's all a game to them, and they're laughing about it on Facebook. And I went to sleep, and I woke, because, you know, we're a huge time difference. I woke up, they had already driven to the farm, they had checked it out, they responded to me. So there are a ton of things that we do. I remember that man, his name was Suze Sheppers, and he just reached out to me. When they banned me from Facebook, he made this really sweet post for me. I still have it, where he has up my picture, and he has like written under there that, you know, they banned me just for speaking the truth and for fighting for them. And he said, you know, she has fought so hard for us. We need to fight for her. So it's just, you know, we do a ton of things. I don't like to say, I cannot say everything that we do, because even though it doesn't seem like something bad to us, because you should have the right to defend your family, your home, your wife, they don't. And I mean, something very small, they just look for reasons to put them in prison or charge them with treason and take the men out of the home, you know, so the women and children are left there alone. But we do a lot to provide gear, to provide tools for them to be able to defend themselves and train, and to train the youth. I'm involved with a ton of people that do this, civil defense organizations, and there are some bad ones out there. So just beware. I mean, I can't explain it. There are some people that are only out there for money, and that's all they care about. I can tell you, I've never made one dime of profit off of this issue, and I never will. Every single dime that I ever get for this issue goes to help where there is a need. And I've been doing this for years, and I have earned the love and the trust and the respect of these people.
Well, what you've done is beyond commendable, Brandi, and I'm sure that there's many people down in South Africa and even here in the States and other parts around the world that are overjoyed at your efforts at trying to shed some light on what is just a horrible tragedy that's been going on down there for years. Here's the email as we wrap up our conversation, and this comes from Rick. And he says in his email, Brandi, he says, I'm glad that Brandi Sheets is giving insight to what is taking place in South Africa. Many believe that the post-apartheid South Africa was a much better place than it was during apartheid. What has happened in a generation is a result of policies that were imposed, critical race theory basically in South Africa. And then he says the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg stated that if she were to construct a constitution, she would adopt the present constitution of South Africa. She has cited South African law when she was alive to make Supreme Court decisions.
Huh.
How about
that? The sad thing about that is that the ruling party, they don't even respect the Constitution. They change it at every whim. It's just like Article 23 that they're trying to put into these people's white-owned land, not only land, but anything they own, property, anything that is has the ability to make money. If they want to go in and take their furniture, they can. I mean, if this bill passes. I have some inside knowledge because we filed some documents on this, and I will just tell everyone that I'm pretty confident in saying this is not going to happen. The bill will never fully be passed. There are things in place that if they were to pass it, I mean, they would immediately be hammered with filing after filing after filing after filing, and it would never stand. But I've had word from the African Union, whom we filed with on land expropriation without compensation. And what they basically said is that it's not a law. I mean, it's not the bill hasn't been passed, so there's nothing we can do. And it just, if you read between the lines, it said that they didn't foresee it being passed. So I think that they absolutely are terrorizing people squatting on their land, the EFF, but as far as legally taking people's land, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but that is really scary. I mean, that these are the people we have in government. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ding dong, the witch is dead. That's all I can say.
That's a perfect way to wrap up our conversation. I commend you, Brandi, and continue the good fight. And it's always good to have you on the show. And I'm sure we'll do this again sometime. And I'll talk to you again off the air soon. Okay?
Okay, great. Thank you so much for hearing me. If anybody wants to find me on Twitter, you can find me at I am Alice VL. Long story. If you want to support anything we're doing, you can find my PayPal under the email address Crisis South Africa at ProtonMail, or at BSHEATS131.
Great. Good stuff. Tell Wyatt I said hello, and I'll talk to you soon.
Oh, can you hear him? I'm sorry. He's terrorizing.
He's great. We love Wyatt. We're going to get him on the air soon, so.
Yeah, I'm a mom too, by the way.
Okay, Brandi, have a good night.
Okay, thank you guys so much.
Thanks, hon. Bye-bye. All right.